Saw a story in the news today. Traffic in fast food restaurants in California since the minimum wage hike up to $20 per hour has gone down. It listed 3 different major restaurant chains, and if you take the average of the 3 of those, it's about 3% that the average traffic has gone down. That means the amount of people that go to those restaurants to eat. So I don't have all these stats right in front of me, so don't take this as gospel. This is just my personal experience. 3%. The last restaurant I worked in, which has been 12 years ago, on a good, solid, almost average week there, we were making about $70,000 in sales. I would say for fast food, that's probably in the medium-high range. So 3% of that is going to be, let's round it down, let's say $2,000. $2,000 a week in sales that you don't have after having raised the minimum wage to $20 an hour. There are certain things in a restaurant that you can control, and there are certain things you can't control as far as costs go. You can't control your rent, utilities, food cost, as far as the amount it costs you to get the food into the store. You can control food cost with loss prevention and waste management and stuff like that. But you cannot control how much it costs to get your product into the store. And in most cases, you are bound to use a specific supplier. You don't have the, especially in large chains or franchises, you don't have the freedom to just go shop around for the cheapest product. So you can't control that. The one thing that you do have the ability to control more than any other thing is labor costs. If I remember correctly, I could probably sit here and do the math in my head, but if I remember correctly, labor was about, I want to say it was probably somewhere between 25 and 30% of the expense of running a restaurant. I think it was closer to 30 plus maybe, but let's just say 30. So if you have $2,000 less income per week in a restaurant, and the only real place you can control for that is in labor, and your employees are making $20 an hour, that is, roughly speaking, 100 man hours worth of labor that you have to cut out of your schedule across that week. That equates to roughly 4 what is generally considered full-time employees now. Full-time now is considered in the range of 25 hours a week. I think technically it's 29 hours per week, but you get my drift. It's 4 people that are working 25 hours a week that are not working 25 hours a week anymore. So now, if you have $2,000 less income per week, that breaks down to about $300 a day, which breaks down, if you consider the average customer in fast food restaurants probably spending about 15 bucks, to about 20 customers per day less than you had before. If you're making if you're working in a restaurant, and let's say you have, I don't know how many what the customer counts were, I can't remember, probably somewhere between 500 and 600 on a good day. If you have 500 customers come in and it requires this many people to make this much food, all of a sudden you have 480 customers coming in, it still requires basically this many people to make this much food. There is practically no difference in the way a restaurant runs with 500 customers a day versus 480 customers a day. But because that bottom line does create a difference in labor cost, now all of a sudden you're having to do that same amount of work with the same amount of hours in a day, with probably spread across a schedule like that, one less person per shift. Now, that may not seem like a lot when you walk into a fast food restaurant and they have 12 or 13 people behind the counter, and some of them seem like they're not doing anything. And I can tell you from experience, the managers that run these restaurants, the general managers, when they're required to work in the restaurant as a working manager, they typically work day shifts. This has been true in every restaurant I've ever worked in. When they're there, they don't produce the same way Joe Schmo over there making sandwiches produces, because they have a lot more stuff they have to take care of. So they're not there actively making sandwiches, cutting pizzas, whatever. And they will not cut labor on their shifts. It always happens on the night shift. Always, in my experience. So if you take for example, the place I worked last, a night shift would have 6 employees, including the manager, and one person who's responsible for nothing but cleaning the dining room, dishes, that kind of stuff. 2 cashiers and 2 people over there making food. 1 manager. With, relatively speaking, no difference in the volume of work that they have to do. Where do you cut that 1 shift? Where do you cut that hour and still provide a service to the people that are coming in that restaurant, expecting you to make their sandwich, take their money, and leave them with a smile on their face? I know the people that passed the bill to make $20 an hour the standard of living for restaurant employees in the state of California do not care at all about any of what I just said. They just like to think that by raising the minimum wage $4.50, they're making these people's lives so much better and easier, when in reality, at this point, I've read recently over 10,000 fast food employees have been fired in California since that bill took effect, which I think was May 1st. I think that's when it was. I may be wrong on that, but 10,000 people have lost their jobs within the last few months. Most of those people that are still working in fast food, they're making $20 an hour. Most of them are getting 20 hours or less per week, 25 hours or less per week. That's roughly $100 extra per week before taxes. After taxes, maybe $65 a week. They're having to work their butts off in order to keep their job because somebody else lost their job. Now they're having to work harder. I guarantee you the net positive from this is way, way lower than what those who sell this as a nice little package tied up with a nice little pretty bow are presenting it as. I'm just thankful I don't work in the restaurant industry anymore.